The reason I'm here today is my husband has suffered greatly, both physically and mentally. He has tried to commit suicide several times. He's been hospitalized due to his injuries for suffering and pain so much that he couldn't take it anymore. And he figured it would be better to be dead than alive. And to be honest with you, I think that State Compensation Insurance Fund would rather my husband be dead than alive. We're lucky. We're like a lucky few. Early on, we decided that we weren't going to settle for cash because I told my husband, you're going to need health care the rest of your life. He has serious spinal problem because of a heavy lifting accident, failed surgery, and a psychiatric injury is not repairable. We're fortunate. We had excellent attorneys. They have stuck with us through thick and thin. Yeah, we're very fortunate in that regard. And they didn't say, oh, settle, settle. When we finally did hit the courthouse for a permanent decision, I think it was, how many years ago was it, John? 2002? In San Francisco, we were in there waiting for maybe an hour and a half, and we listened to many attorneys sell out their clients. And it was shocking. It was really shocking. They were telling them, oh, you have no chance of getting anything, just take $5,000, it's a great deal. Well, I'm telling you here today, no. Say no to $5,000. Say no to $50,000. They offered my husband $250,000, and we told him, Bazoom! I told the judge, no, we do not want the money. And he looked at me and I said, I don't care. We do not want money. My husband needs health care. Health insurance has broke us. We used to be very wealthy. We're from San Francisco. We had 2 homes. Well, one of those homes has completely been eaten up by health care. We sold it. We liquidated it. We spent all the money on health care for the last 15 years. I still say don't sell your benefits no matter what they say, because you have no rights. I wouldn't be able to be up here talking about Skiff if we had sold his health care, because I think there's some disclosure they make you sign that you keep your mouth shut. I just told the judge, my husband is sick. He is a broken man. He will never be the same. There's no amount of money that's going to fix him. He needs health care for the rest of his life, and that's all I'm asking. And he wrote a 32-page report, and it was a very well-thought report. He looked at all the stuff, all the QMEs, all the AMEs, all his treating physicians, and he said that he could only come to one conclusion, that by a preponderance of the evidence, that both the psychological and the physical combined, that he was indeed 100% disabled and had a right to health care for the rest of his life. And a wonderful settlement. Oh, what was the settlement? I think he got $17,000, which we're paying $15,000 of it back to Social Security disability, which is a whole nother discussion. So you can't double dip unless you have some great union that doesn't give a shit, and they'll pay you anyway so you can get everything. But he was not a union worker. He was a carpenter in a non-union shop. So you're basically at the mercy of Social Security and workers' comp, and so we paid everything back. I think we ended up with about $3,000 after all the years of suffering. And he gets a whole $266 a week for life. Woo! Party on! We're all going to live on that. It's devastating. And just recently, and what brought me here today and what made me feel we need to be together, that we need to tell everybody, we need to tell our neighbors. People don't want to hear about it. That we're like shoved under the carpet. That's why I say we're veterans. We are veterans. We have lost most all our friends. Most of our family, they don't want to talk about it. My own mother recently says to me, oh, I just don't get it. I'm like, what do you mean you don't get it? She says there's so much fraud. I'm like, you're being propagandized. You're listening to this TV and to what they tell you, but honestly, that's a very small percentage. Two people? 2%. Okay. So 98% are being denied for the sins of 2%. So what actually brought me here today, and my husband and our daughter, is recently my husband was approved finally to go see a specific treatment that he needs. And I've been fighting talking to he's got a really great treating doctor, but her hands are pretty tied. I said, please submit that he can get to see the specialist. Please submit it. So she finally submitted it in the beginning of April. And by April 12th, I had in my hot hands an approval for an eval and 6 visits to the specialist. What a effing joke. You need to go out and buy a case of KY jelly and bend over. Not one doctor, not one, in the MPN network would see my husband. I called Blue Cross, which is the new MPN network. This very nice man talked to me for a solid week. He helped, every day he made calls on our behalf. Every day his attorney's office was helping me. At the end of that 2-week period, I get a letter last week. It says, it's from John's attorney's office. It says, "Dear Mrs. Leach, blah, blah, blah. The insurance company admits there's not one doctor in the MPN network that will see your husband." What a crock of shit. Blue Cross should be flushed down the toilet. How dare them not treat injured workers? How dare them?
I'm Mike DeRubio, and I kind of spent a little bit of time writing this in an effort to kind of honor me and honor us in this effort. So if you'll bear with me, I'm just going to kind of read from this real quick, and hopefully it makes a little bit of a difference. Thanks for allowing me to speak today. I believe that these are some of the most important issues that the state will face, and I believe that with enough awareness and effort, we can make a change. This governor did not get into office because he was stupid, but he is a liar. And he lied to all of us, and it is our duty as citizens who are responsible for the future of this state to stand up for the right thing, and if need be, terminate this governor's power or term in this office if he fails to see the injustices he has wrought. I'm not a politician. I didn't go to college. I'm just a poor working guy who was supporting a family who happened to get hurt through no fault of my own. And I clearly see that if I don't stand up and be heard, no one else who is suffering will stand up either. Can you imagine a state where our kids may twist or break their backs and will end up living in poverty because they were doing their job? Don't kid yourselves, it's happening now and will continue until we're heard. We must remember our brothers and sisters who are living this horror right now and the ones who are no longer here with us on earth as a result of getting hurt while doing their jobs. In an effort to inform Californians, I would like to share with you some of the letters or some of the things that I've indicated to the governor are problems. This governor made the mistake of giving me his fax number. As a result of the lack of response on their parts, it is my belief that the governor has one of two things on his mind. Either we are finally being seen and heard by people of this state, and he is beginning to see a pattern of mistakes starting with Senate Bill 899, or he will think that he can just roll over us like a Panzer tank, that he has begun to do, and he will even do more to hurt people of California. Does this governor really believe that the citizens of California will not start to see the monumental cost shifting that is draining this state's welfare and disability pools? Does this governor believe that we did not hear the broken promises and claims of not knuckling under to big business because he said, "I have deep pockets"? Who has the accountability when a private citizen, while doing his job, gets hurt and requires medical attention, and the state guaranteed promise of providing this health care and the ability to earn a living that is relative to what we were doing before an injury? I am here to demand that the governor create a board consisting of injured workers and attorneys to go along with his appointees to work out a workers' comp reform law that allows people to receive treatments in a timely manner, and in the cases that require it, retraining, so that we are not forced to become part of the system, but to better this badly broken system, so that we may be fair for these companies and still make a profit, while the public may count on fair treatment to resume a fair, profitable lifestyle that is commensurate with their pre-injury abilities and skills. Senate Bill 899 is a huge mistake and clearly needs to be completely overdone. I would like to share the following letters that I have sent to this governor, and would like to commit that as a representative of the injured worker, I will not go away. I'm having serious issues due in large part to your workers' compensation reforms. It should be noted that I did make the mistake of voting for you in the recall election. I did not, however, vote for you in this election because I feel that you have gone to great lengths to hurt many people and continue to do so. My issue in particular began on January 24th, 2005, doing a job that I loved for a company that I loved to work for, which I'd like to share with you. I was doing my job as a carpenter and very badly hurt my back. At that time, I was forced to see a state fund network doctor who wasn't even a back specialist. This guy was an elbow specialist. Of course, I did not find this out until after a few months when he threatened to terminate my temporary disability benefit with no treatment whatsoever. I finally contacted my caseworker, and she told me that if the doctor determined I was permanent and stationary, my biweekly benefit would be reduced to $440 every 2 weeks. I had been earning nearly $35 an hour of benefits, which my family would also end up losing. I was also told that if I did not accept modified duty, my claim would be denied. So I did end up working in extreme pain from the first week of February 2005 through the middle of June of 2005. I was able to select another doctor who did determine that I would need a fusion surgery at the L5S1 level. And during this time, I found out that I would also need spinal fusion surgery in my neck from C4 through C7. The doctor who did this surgery felt that the only way I could have gotten this type of damage was through working. I received no consideration or benefit from this cervical spine injury and was lucky that my union benefits were extended, or my family would have been ruined right then and there. I finally received a spinal fusion surgery in my lumbar in December of 2006. This following a series of injections in my spine to help reduce the pain. 7 weeks following the surgery, state fund insurance terminated my temporary disability benefit with no warning. And although my doctor said that I could not return to work until at least probably November of 2007, State Fund told me that since I filed my claim January 26th of 05, my benefit would end because of the 104-week rule, even though I can't return to work. As of today, April 28th, my family stands on the edge of ruin, and I do mean emotionally and financially. My first attempt at state disability was denied because I hand-delivered my completed claim and the caseworker did not provide me with all the information, and as of today, they did finally approve it. This was a couple weeks ago. However, the fact remains that without help, my family will be out of a home, and at the end of the next month or two, as I exhausted all of my resources. Since I no longer have any medical benefits, the new problem in my back that was diagnosed at the T4, T5 level will go untreated, as well as the reoccurrence of pain in my neck as the surgery was not completely successful. How can a business or government thrive if its people are not protected under state law if they have the misfortune of becoming injured? I want to know who is accountable for this. Who pays the price? Well, we pay the price. I have a 12 and 4-year-old daughters at home. And you know, without continuing on with this, you know, I look in my kids' eyes every day and wonder what it's going to be like when I can't pay the bills anymore and I have to call up my dad or my brother and say, you got a room for a while? You know, I hope the governor is listening to this because he is killing us.
These are just about 1/4 of the deaths that occur in California every year that are completely preventable. All these names represent at least 2 family members who are put through extreme torture and brutal assaults on their livelihood related directly to the actions of corporate greed. We need to do everything within our power, including the things that we do not believe are within our power, but trust me, they are. Take this into our own hand and care enough about these people, stop referring to them as numbers and start referring to them as human beings. The difference between an injured worker and a killed worker is simply the nature of your injury. You are every bit as important as the names on these lists. If you're sitting here with an injury in front of me, I thank you so much for just taking the time to come when it seems like not a lot of people are listening. But you know what, they are. And if you continue to show up, especially at the times when it seems like not a lot of people are listening, people are going to catch on. It may take 1 year, it may take 2, it may take 10. But if we stop coming and standing up for what's right, what change can we hope for?
Let me let Carrie address exactly why bullying is still legal.
So long as it's harassment is legal, so long as you are not harassing an employee because he or she is a member of a protected class. That's not very well known by the general public. It is very well known by the employers. If the employee can, for some reason, prove discrimination as a member of a protected class under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Amendment, then he has a chance of finding attorney representation and going forward with a charge for discrimination. But just plain old status blind harassment is perfectly legal in this country. It is within the parameters of the law of every state in this union to psychologically traumatize and destroy a human being in his line of work. We refer to this as workplace bullying, and workplace bullying is defined as repeated, health-harming mistreatment. That would include verbal abuse, threats, intimidation, humiliation, and work sabotage that undermines business. Bullying is expensive to government industries, it's expensive to private industries, and it has run amok. We have a culture from the top down that permits and promotes bullying, and we are asking that it be recognized and stopped through legislation.
Thank you. The core of our legislation is that bullying, the terminology is to correct and prevent bullying in the workplace, much like we now have laws to correct and prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. So this is a loophole in the 1964 Civil Rights Act that needs to be plugged, and this legislation will do that. I'll give you a quick version. I worked for a private, it's the world's largest private university. They'll be happy to tell you that right off in every ad they place. And I worked there for 6 years. After really the first 6 months, I realized we were being systematically, it's what I call the shell game, where they say one thing but do another. Where's the shell? We were promised if we came early and stayed late and put in extra hours, we'd get, make higher wages, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm a little older than the average worker bee there, so, people that are my children's age in their 30s are being exploited. They bring them in, they make all these promises, and then they systematically exploit them and bully them back out again. Well, I happen to have worked for myself for 14 years, so I know what a work ethic is, and I figured if I just go in every day and do the best job I can do, they've got no grounds to fire me. So I did that, and eventually myself and 3 others started a class action lawsuit against them to get overtime. Oh my goodness, for the work that we actually put in. It took 3 years. They finally settled out of court. I got my overtime. I didn't get anything more. That's okay. I got my overtime, and within 6 weeks I was fired. The other sad thing was, for as much work as we did to get that overtime, depositions, fear, post-traumatic stress disorder, therapy, I was hoping that that would really make a difference for the rest of the people that work there. But as it turned out, they're all too afraid to ask for overtime for the hours they put in for fear that they'll get targeted and bullied out as well. So that's my personal story. I've been out of there for a little over probably almost 3.5 years, maybe it's 2.5, I don't know. 2 or 3 years, I found other employment. I feel fortunate for that. I am still with my regular work ethic, doing the best I can do every day and letting it be good enough. But I really had that survivor's guilt for the people I had to leave behind there. So that was really another whole issue I had to deal with. So let Carrie tell you a little bit about her story.
I was a high school English teacher for 20 years, and an abusive school superintendent was hired in to run a school district about a mile from here. He decided that I knew too much about school finance, and I was watchdogging soft money funding intended for immigrant students. He had to dispose of me to do whatever he wanted with the funding. So within 10 years, he completely destroyed me. I walked off the job. Within 3 hours, I became very, very spastic on the right side of my body. Under stress, I'm still very spastic, and my speech is impeded.
I have a conversion disorder from post-trauma stress. I was diagnosed immediately by the doctor for the school district, and it still took me 7 years to get a settlement. And in that process, I was abused again and again and again by workers' compensation doctors who would grill me for hours at a time. How they could grill a very spastic lady, or why they would think that I was faking it. They camped outside of my home for weeks just waiting for me to come out the door so they could get me on film acting normal. Well, I'd only go out on a good day maybe once a month. So they must have spent tons of money doing that, and this was state money. The man who abused me left that school district. He was kicked upstairs to your jobs to find a new job. He went up to Orland, and he did it again. And they subpoenaed me for a restraining order that they had to get against this guy. I mean, he's a bad actor, a serial bully. They kicked him out after 3 years, and he's now down in Hillmar. Well, guess what, folks? The Merced Sun-Star had a March 1st article about this man. Something's rotten in Denmark, and teachers are talking about leaving. So here we've got the same old thing. There was nothing for my school district to do to him. There's no law against what he did to me. It is legal to persecute a human and traumatize them. That was the end of my career in education, but I don't have a hush clause on my settlement, and I will never shut up. My freedom of speech is not for sale.
I was a study coordinator for Sutter. I did clinical trials. I'd done them for 7 years. Up here, I'd been doing them for about 3 to 5 years. I'm from Southern California. I was rear-ended on the freeway, like at 45 to 60 miles an hour. And I felt very fortunate. Actually, AAA told me I was fortunate to survive, because a lot of people with that sort of an injury don't always survive. And Sutter provided me temporary total disability for about 4 months until the QME doctor, Dr. O'Hara, he declared me permanent and stationary. I had a pre-designated chiropractor that actually Sutter tried to harass me out of not seeing him and told me I wouldn't receive any kind of benefits if I saw him and not their doctor, which I knew, having worked my whole life, that was just ridiculous. I knew that in the state of California, as an employee, I had a right to choose my own doctor. They don't have a medical provider network. They pretended like they did and tried to force me to go there. So as you can see, I'm like, I need quite a bit of help. I'm hopefully just waiting for a neck surgery that will put me back to normal. I mean, is kind of what I'm led to believe, I have and to have taken 2 years out of my life, and, I've lost everything. It's been pretty horrific. And so the judge that I had that heard my case acknowledged only my neck injury, and I finally got approval for a primary treating doctor from Sutter after 2 years. They finally approved me to have one in May. I mean, and my attorney really hadn't done anything during that whole time either. So I had lost my apartment. I had to move in with a male friend who did sexually assault me as payment for rent. And right now I'm fortunate that I live in a group home where the people have a mental health diagnosis. Of course, I'm depressed. And it's not an environment that I feel really safe. I have a shared room, a bipolar roommate that rages pretty much every day, and I've had to report her behavior to the house manager, so I'm not injured any further. I went on GA and food stamps. I did finally get state disability, and I bought this scooter so that I could get around. Prior to that time, actually Sutter wouldn't even give me a manual wheelchair, which I really couldn't push because of right after the accident, both my arms, I had tingling in both my arms, but mostly in my left, and my right arm is really, it's not very usable. So I couldn't get around in the wheelchair really even. I was bedridden pretty much for the first year, and I still only really travel on paratransit to doctor's appointments. I think that's my son. I lost all my medical care that I was paying part of the premiums for that I'd had when I worked for Sutter. I've had to pay my own living expenses. I've had to pay, for somebody, like a personal assistant, to come out and help me to do certain things that I absolutely cannot do. I've stopped cooking for myself. I live on sandwiches, and I was receiving medical care through the CMISP program, the county, where pretty much they would refill my medicines and my muscle relaxers and things like that, but that was the extent of their treatment. That was all they could do. But I did go there for about a year. So Sutter finally gave me 4 more months of temporary total disability, but I have been disabled actually since 12/13/04. Sutter denied me medical care except for the chiropractic treatments and a cervical MRI. That's all I have been approved for this whole entire time. And really my attorney hasn't done anything to help me get benefits that are owed to me or that I certainly need. I believe that had I received medical care up front, I certainly wouldn't have suffered for these past 2 years, and I wouldn't have lost everything, and I would have a better chance of getting back to normal. And so I do blame my employer, I blame my attorney, I blame all these systems that I believe that I worked for, paid into my whole life for 25 years, that haven't really come through for me. And it's really hard. I have 2 young adult children, and I'm trying to tell them, if you work and you do the right thing, that's the American way, but I have a really hard time believing that or telling them that. I've been fighting with Unum, the long-term care health insurance that I had from Sutter, and they pretty much, their most recent denial just said that I don't even need a wheelchair. I just feel it's just like a living nightmare every single day. And my attorney basically has told me that, a lot of injured workers give up by now, or they do commit suicide.